If you've been through something genuinely hard, a brutal job, a relationship that cost you, a health crisis, a year that just broke you, and it's over now, but your body's still acting like it isn't, here's what's actually happening. Your cells are still running the alarm, not metaphorically, literally. There's a cellular mechanism that keeps the danger signal broadcasting long after the danger is gone. And until that cycle completes itself, your nervous system cannot update its threat map, no matter what you do at the level of mindset. And here is what makes this interesting, and honestly, a little uncomfortable. The most popular things that people do to try to fix this, the cold plunges, the breathwork stacks, the HRV optimization, they're actually step 3. Doing them before step 1 isn't just ineffective. In a depleted system, some of them are actually making things worse. I'll show you exactly why in about 6 minutes, including which ones and what to do first instead. Here's what we're covering. First, the mechanisms, what actually is keeping the alarm on at the cellular level and why your brain keeps generating threats that aren't there. Second, the misstep, why the most popular fixes are working against biology. And third, the correct sequence, what actually has to happen in order for your cells to finally get the all clear. And I'm going to give you one finding from the epigenetics literature that's going to completely reframe how you think about why this is so hard to fix. And it has nothing to do with your mindset or your effort. It has to do with the love molecule. We'll talk about that in a minute here. So picture this. The first thing that broke you, whatever that thing was, is over, objectively over. The toxic job, you left it. The relationship, it ended. The health scare, you got through it. The burnout year or longer, it's behind you. Your life looks differently now. Better even. People around you can actually see it. But you wake up at 3 a.m. and your heart is already going. You brace when your phone rings, even when there's no reason to. You scan your partner's face for warning signs that aren't there. You sit in a meeting that's completely fine, and your body treats it like a performance review for your survival. The crisis ended. The crisis state didn't. And the longer it goes on, the more you wonder privately and uncomfortably if something is actually wrong with you. Something is just not what you think. Because it isn't a psychology problem. It is a cellular one. And the explanation is one of the most fascinating things I've come across in medicine. There's something most people don't say out loud about this, but I see it constantly in clinical practice. It's not just symptoms that are exhausting, it's the gap between how your life looks from the outside and how it feels on the inside. You know you should feel okay. You have the evidence outside of you that things are just fine. Yet something in you keeps insisting otherwise. Keeps scanning, keeps bracing, keeps running the math on threats that never materialize. That gap between what you know and what you feel isn't a failure of perspective. It's your perception system running on corrupted data. And this is exactly what we mean by cellular truth on this channel. The explanation isn't in your head, it's in your cells, which run all of your systems, all of your tissue, right? Here's the thing about the human body. It is, at its core, a prediction machine. Many people don't know this, but your brain isn't passively receiving the world. It's constantly generating a model of what's out there based on internal signals and updating that model with new information when it comes in. When that system is working, it is extraordinary. When it's been running on chronic stress for long enough, the model stops updating. And you keep seeing the old world, the dangerous one, the one that no longer exists. Now, I know this sounds abstract, so stay with me, because the biology of how this happens is actually very concrete. And it has a name. This is what I call the sympathetic spiral, doing what it does. Each layer reinforces the next, and the reason it doesn't stop on its own is what we're going to get into right now. Here's the order that matters. First, we need to understand the cellular mechanism that keeps the alarm running. This is the CDR, the cell danger response. And it's the piece that almost nobody in the wellness space is talking about yet. I bet that's going to change soon. Second, we need to name the misstep, why the most popular tools don't work here, and what they're doing to a depleted system. Third, the correct sequence, what step 1 actually looks like. Sequence is everything here. I know we've covered a lot of ground already, and here's where it's going to truly land. We're going to get into some mechanisms, and I promise this is the good part, and I'm going to translate every piece of jargon the second I use it. The cell danger response. Okay, this is the CDR. This is a concept that was developed by a doctor named Dr. Robert Navio. It describes the most fundamental alarm system in our biology. When any cell, anywhere in our body encounters a threat, infection, injury, toxin, and shockingly chronic stress, it shifts into defensive states. It stops doing its normal job and starts doing one job only: to survive. Part of it, how it broadcasts this alarm, is by leaking ATP, adenosine triphosphate, your cellular energy currency. You make about 150 pounds of ATP every single day. It's supposed to stay in your cells, okay? But what can happen is when it leaks outside, it actually acts as a distress signal. It says to your neighboring cells, to your immune system, to your nervous system, something is not good here. If that felt like a lot, here's a short version, okay? Stress cells leak energy molecules as an alarm signal. Those signals keep your immune system activated, your nervous system on high alert, and your brain in threat detection mode. Now, the CDR has 3 stages, okay? It has CDR1, which is dam and control, CDR2, which is rebuilding, and CDR3, which is completion. The healing cycle closes, the alarm turns off, the cells return back to normal function. Here is the problem. The CDR was designed for acute threats, a virus, a wound, a predator, threats that end. Chronic stress, the kind that grinds for months, years, keeps the CDR1 running without even triggering the completion signal. So you stay in that CDR1 and you get stuck there. Not because the threat is still there, it's because the biology never got the message that it left. And here's the piece from the epigenetics literature. This is the study of how cells or how our DNA is modified by environmental changes. This is what epigenetics is all about. The epigenetics research and literature reframes everything in this context. Chronic stress doesn't just keep the alarm running. It epigenetically reduces the availability or the production of your oxytocin receptors. I talked about that in the beginning, right? Oxytocin receptors, the cellular docking stations for your safety signal. Oxytocin is your primary body's all clear molecule. Most of you didn't know that. But oxytocin is your love drug. It's your hug drug. It makes you feel safe, okay? But when the receptor sites had been methylated down, meaning that they're no longer active because they'd been dialed down by sustained stress, the safety signal is present and simply cannot land. You cannot generate calm. Your cells cannot receive it. This is why the gap exists. The crisis ended, but the cellular hardware that registers safety has been quietly reconfigured by the experience of it. And this is why the most common approaches people try are working directly against the mechanisms we just described. I want to be clear before I say this. The approaches I'm about to describe make complete intuitive sense. They're not wrong. It's just the sequence is off. The standard play for a dysregulated nervous system in 2026, anybody raise their hand? Cold plunges, breath work, meditation, HRV optimization, maybe some sauna. I like some sauna. Maybe a wearable. I have a couple of those. And these are legitimate tools. I use some of them myself, as mentioned. And in a recovered system, in someone with adequate cellular energy, a CDR cycle that's completed, they work beautifully. However, in a CDR1 stuck system, so you haven't gone through all the stages, you're asking a depleted cell to do hormesis, which is a stressor that's supposed to be good for you and absorb it and come out stronger. But hormesis requires energy reserves to complete the adaptation. So cold plunges, HIIT training, aggressive breath work, these are stressors. The body is supposed to bounce back from them. When your mitochondria are already running in the alarm, they're on emergency fuel already, and there's no reserve to bounce back from or with. You're not doing it wrong. You're just doing step 3 at step 1, and your body is paying the difference. Again, so if the misstep is doing step 3 first, here's what step 1 actually looks like. And the reason the order matters comes directly from mechanisms we just covered. Step 1 is cellular energy restoration. Before the cell danger response can complete itself, before the oxytocin receptor can come back up online, before the nervous system can actually receive a safety signal, the mitochondria, the part of your cells that make energy, need fuel. So how do we do this? Well, we give it fuel. We give it the vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and that it needs. Sleep is so important here. Nutrient repletion is so important here. And for many people, targeted mitochondrial support. And I have some tips for you at the end of this video on how to do that. Step 2 is reducing the cellular alarm signal. This is where CDR resolution tools come in. And they're different from the hormetic tools that dominate the regulation trend. More of that later too. Step 3, and only during step 3, is when we train autonomic flexibility. Breathwork, HRV coherence, cold. These tools are going to work at this point, but they require a cellular substrate we just built from step 1 and step 2. I have a term I like called the parasympathetic edge. This is the edge where you have real recovery capacity, not just temporary calm. You have the capacity to go into sympathetic fight or flight and then come back down anytime, in any moment when you need to. Now, you don't need to memorize all of this, okay? But what I want you to take away is one thing. Sequence over hacks. The right tool at the right time is essential. The right tool at the wrong time is the wrong tool. Now I'm gonna give you some tools here. Before I give you the full list or the list I'm gonna give you today, the most important thing I can tell you is that which tools apply to you depends on entirely where you are in the cycle. If you're CDR1 stuck, which is where most people are watching this video, or probably are, a lot of us are, at least some of the time, the relevant tools are the CDR resolution tools first. These reduce the cellular alarm state without demanding energy reserves for you to do it, okay? So here are a couple that I like a lot. Mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Hyperbaric therapy drives more oxygen in circulation, but mild amounts, just a little bit, are going to support mitochondrial function and allow the CDR to help modify or modulate towards completion. Photobiomodulation, this is light therapy. Light can activate parts of the mitochondria. Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy can be helpful here. Neurofeedback is an interesting one because neurofeedback can directly retrain the threat perception circuitry. This is arguably the most targeted tool for the misperception problem we described. Fun one here is methylene blue. Methylene blue supports mitochondrial electron transport. It optimizes energy production. It optimizes detoxification. It is one of the primary tools that I use in clinical practice to support the capacity for our cells to make energy now. Now, hormetic tools like cold plunges, sauna, HIIT, breathwork protocols, hold these until step 3. Hold it until you have more cellular energy capacity to work with. Again, it's not whether these tools work. They do. The question is whether your system is ready to respond to them. Okay, so remember the person from the beginning, waking up at 3 a.m., bracing for the phone ringing, scanning for threats in the room that's safe. Here's how that looks now. This person isn't broken. You're not broken. The perception system isn't lying to them out of psychological dysfunction. Their cells are running on a threat map that was an accurate one and was never given the biological signal to update itself. The CDR kept the alarm on. Chronic stress methylated those oxytocin receptors. Remember, they're down, they're not working. So when calm arrives objectively and genuinely, it couldn't land. There was nowhere for the safety signal to dock itself. It isn't a mindset gap. It's a cellular reception gap. Let me say that again, clearer. The gap between knowing you're okay and feeling it isn't a mindset gap. It is a cellular reception gap. And that's a completely different problem with a completely different solution, one that starts one level deeper than any regulation app can reach. Here's what I want you to take away from this. You're not failing to heal. You were trying to complete a cycle that didn't have the cellular conditions to close. That's not a character flaw. That's a sequencing problem. And sequencing problems have sequencing solutions. So here are 4 things you can do right now, before any gadget, before any protocol, before anything complicated. Step 1, go to bed at the same time every single night. Doesn't have to be perfect sleep, doesn't have to be consistent sleep, but just try to start with the same bedtime. Sleep is when the CDR cycle does its repair work. Without it, nothing else stacks. But just try to start working on sleep. Number 2, try to eat regularly. Real food, whole foods at regular intervals. Don't skip meals if you are in the CDR. It's not going to go well because you're too wired to feel hungry. That's depletion talking, okay? Your cells need substrate to run repair cycles, and they can't get it from stress hormones alone. Step 3, move just gently every day. Not to train, not to perform, just to walk. 20 minutes. Get outside if you can. You're not exercising. That's okay. You're sending your nervous system the one signal it needs right now. The body is safe enough to use. And 4, take a look at methylene blue. I know it sounds like this kind of blue crazy dye and it has a long history of, I know people are worried about it, but it directly supports mitochondrial machinery so your cells can produce energy right now, giving your mitochondria an alternative route to generate ATP energy when the primary pathway has been compromised. And it can help you flip out of those CDR1 stuck stages and get you through that whole cycle to CDR1, 2, and 3. For a lot of people, it's actually the thing that finally makes the first 3 steps actually land. The map doesn't update all at once. It updates once you have completed the cycle, okay? The CDR is now completed. Now remember everybody, you're not broken. You're mid-process. There's a difference here, and that difference is everything. My name is Dr. Scott Sherr. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cellular Truth. We'll see you next time.